What's good, YouTube? Today I want to go over a discussion I actually had with PhoenixFlareX on this topic, and that's why is Zoodiac hated so much? What's with all the fake hate in the community? Yu-Gi-Oh discussion here. And I actually have to agree, there is a margin of fake hate there, but a lot of it's actually just poorly articulated on why people dislike the mechanic, and they're just kind of quoting other people on what they hate about it because they're getting beat by it. And the first thing I want to debunk is price should not be the hate point on this deck. Yes, it is expensive, but people love to go, oh, remember Upper Deck, they treated the player so much better. Remember $400 Crush card in Gold Series? $400? A set of Barrages is starting to, like, creep towards that, but it's actually gone way back down in the past few days to, like, $210 for a playset. Like, the entire engine almost cost $400 if you're including the Invoker. So, what really is hated about this? Well, I want to articulate it in 3 steps here. It has too many starter cards for consistency that only take 1 card to start it off. No other deck has ever had that advantage, and no other deck has been able to do so much with 1 card, such as generate the advantage of a +4 with the deck. And then I also want to articulate that it has spot-free removal for no cost at all to you. And it's actually a quick play removal as well in a sense. So let's go ahead and get into all that. First, let's go on our superior starters here, as Johnny Lee might say. You have Zoodiac, Barrage, and Speedroid Terratop. You can play 3 of each in your deck. Terratop gets you to Invoker, which gets you to Molmarat. Barrage gets you to Molmarat. And, of course, Molmarat itself. These are 3 amazing starters that you play 9 total of in your deck. And the consistency is insane. And basically, any other card also automatically gets you to a Molmarat that has Zoodiac in the name, because you can just overlay 1 for Broad Bull here and be able to search it out. So your entire monster slot is a starter card that allows you to combo off next turn. But if you draw any of these, you're golden. And what's even crazier about 2 of these is that you can special summon your Zoo monsters with Barrage or Terratop and not even have to waste your normal summon. That's why the engine is so splashable. And he also touched that it makes the format diverse. I have to disagree with that. It's actually slimmed it way down compared to what it was. The past 2 formats, each regional season, I think we had like 30 different decks topped regionals, and I don't think we'll see that this one. I think it'll slim down to like maybe 15 to 18. Like on-off stuff will still top. We're seeing barrier statues do surprisingly well, which should tell you something about this deck. But the spot-free removal is actually insane, and you should be rarely losing to the barrier statues themselves. So let's go ahead and mention how this also breaks the Xyz mechanic. You actually have an ability to go 1 card into the Xyz mechanic, but on top of that, you overlay. Now, we've had that before. Let's go out of the starters. We should already know how crazy the start and consistency of this deck is, which is why a lot of people play it. But let's go ahead here. And thank you very much for this discussion point, PhoenixFlareX. He actually has a great argument. I'll link it down below, and you guys can listen to it. These are just the parts where I want to explain why people hate it. I personally don't hate Zoodiac, by the way. I love watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Overall. But we have the ability to stack on top, stack on top, stack on top. We've seen this with cards like Downard, but we haven't seen you be able to go further and further and further and further in succession with combos. So that's why 1 card becomes so much. And you have with the Tiger Mortar, you have the ability to resource your graveyard back on top of Broad Bull, generating advantage. So 1 card becomes a search and a draw and a removal card. That's a lot for 1 card. And that's what makes the traps unfair, is that you're able to, like, resource them for free pretty much to back you. Now, everything's super susceptible to field wipes, and the removal is so good that you no longer even have to run Utopia the Lightning for a lot of these decks. So your final play is usually to overlay into this card, which is Drident. I wanted to say Drancia, but Drident basically is a 1 card Regeki break that you're able to recur into more cards if it stays on the field. And it's just so crazy that the back and forth of this deck actually typically is able to play around it. But against every other deck not playing Zoo, especially if they rely on their normal summon, this card is such a strong presence that people basically have to main deck. Very similar to Jin. Main deck Regeki or Dark Holes, whereas with Jin, you were main decking out specifically for the Jin Lock 2. It's very interesting that the format circulates so much all around this, and that's what generates this real hate, is that it breaks the mechanics of the game by going overlay, 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 overlay. But this isn't the first time we've seen the mechanics broken, and honestly, it's exciting to me to see the play back and forth, back and forth. Like, you're able to Ghost Ogre, you're able to try to play around it, you're able to go into it, like... There's so much actual technical play from this deck that I personally do enjoy it, but this is why people hate it. It breaks the games. Very similar to how Pendulum broke the summoning mechanic. Zoodiac on its own breaks the summoning mechanics by going overlay, 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 overlay. And then advantage by Bullhorn, search. Advantage by going ahead and getting that pop. Advantage by being able to resource your graveyard and get into whatever you want. And then you have the added bonus of adding attack, but that's not what Whiptail is really for. Whiptail is spot free removal. When I say free, basically you already got to search it in combo if you're playing Whiptail. And what it does is crazy. If this card battles an opponent's monster, after damage calculation, banish that opponent's monster. That's as an Xyz material. So, and it can also equip as a quick play from your hand. So while a lot of people just saw it as a Kalut, what it really does is, it doesn't matter if your monster can't be targeted, because this doesn't target. It doesn't matter if it can't be destroyed, because it banishes. It basically breaks every monster in the game that falls short of the text. This card cannot be destroyed by, or not even destroyed. This card cannot be affected by monster effects. Anything short of that just gets banished. Or if the card can't get banished, I suppose. There's not too many of those floating around that are relevant, though. If any. I don't know if there's any card that says that you just can't get banished. But for the most part, this is the main card that actually makes the deck bonkers, because it's able to out every other deck's boss monsters for the most part. You don't see Super Quantles running around because they're so inconsistent. And for one card, you garner so much consistency throughout a deck. And even though it's a splashable engine, a lot of people dislike that it ends up in the same route of a Drydet on board with the extra advantage of an Emerald on board and the free draw. All typically for not having to have your normal summon, since in those decks, you're running Terror Top or Barrage. So let me know in the comments below what really irks you about the Zoodiac deck. Is it the price? Is it really the price? Because we've had multiple formats where the decks were easily above $500. Remember Brio coming out at like 80 and Valk being 80 at the start, and plenty of people paid for that for, again, Seattle, ironically. Is it really the price? I don't think the price is the problem for a lot of you guys who are already spending plane tickets to go out to events, or, you know, traveling out, paying for hotels. I don't think the price is necessarily the problem for each player. While it is a problem, I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem, or as I constructed, every single card in the deck of Pure Zoo is a starter card to get you to combo next turn. You don't even have to normal summon with two of your, I guess, the Johnny Lee experience, superior starters here. And then you're able to just go off and garner so much advantage, and it breaks the Xyz mechanic. But my actual main problem is Whiptail, if I had a problem with Zoo. And that's that it's spot-free removal that is just able to wipe almost anything in the game off the face of the board into the banished pile of all places. I think Whiptail actually breaks this deck harder than anything. But how crazy is it that people are not putting Utopia the Lightning in their extra deck? That was the main answer through over a year and a half, and now it has been outclassed by a searchable hand trap in a sense. And that hand trap can, if you're, getting to Drydet, that hand trap can just become a Regeki break if you need it, so it has multi-utility. It's so insane. And again, this is, I think, more so the reason and a constructed argument on why people hate Zoo overall and why it would end up banned. Like, Billy said it best. At least in ABC, you needed Hanger plus a card. In this deck, you basically just need Hanger. And that's what's crazy, the one-card consistency. And it's not even interruptible sometimes, because if you interrupt the card brought off Barrage, they continue, they Tiger Mortar, they resource the Mulmurat back from Graveyard. Oh, it's so insane. It's so insane. And you can stop on a Maxi and just make a Drydet too, giving the one-for-one sometimes. What do you guys think? Again, in the comment section below, give me your best represented arguments for or against Zoodiacs. I've seen a lot of people talk about why they hate it, but I don't think I've seen a really well-constructed argument overall. I see a lot of, price. I see a lot of the closest argument is breaking the XC's mechanic, but I don't really see people point out the consistent utility, and on top of that, I don't really see them point out Whiptail too often. I guess, like, the Metal Foe players don't even play Whiptail because they're searching a low scale, but I think Whiptail actually is probably one of the main problems here. If they didn't have this, they would have to be going to Lightning, which would, still be one of the same routes, but they'd be committing at least a few more resources and board presence to it. Thanks for watching, guys.